Hello, this is Ibrahim, and in this video we're going to look at how to store the paths of the files or the images uploaded to the server, how to store those in the database. In this tutorial I'm not going to use any SQL database. I'm going to use a NoSQL database, MongoDB. And so the scenario would be, as I come to the uploader, I upload an image, and before the image gets stored in the server, I store the path I store the path to that image in the database. So afterwards, when we do the reading, we could go and simply read from the database. Okay, so first of all, before we get anything, before we start coding, we have to verify that our MongoDB is actually installed and running. In my case, I have MongoDB running as a service in my system, and I'll post a link to a post in my blog on how to do that, and you could achieve that. So instead of me every time running Mongo, and I could just simply go and run Mongo, and the service starts to run. In this case, Mongo is running and everything is set. I will also be assuming that you will be using the defaults, basically the default host and port number used by MongoDB. If you change those, you could change them as you see appropriate. So anyways, let's start with connecting to the database or connecting to the server. We've verified that our server is running. Now we have to make sure that we import PyMongo, the driver to MongoDB server, the Python driver. Now to verify that the PyMongo is actually installed in our system, we could simply import PyMongo, and if no exceptions raised, then we're good to go. In this case, no exceptions show, so we're good to go. We've imported MongoDB. We've imported the driver to Python Mongo driver. Sorry about that. Anyways, so now we shall define global variables that we shall use. So just so we avoid writing those every single time. And those variables are basically the link to the host, to the database host, as well as the port number. And we shall create the client to connect to the database server. So first of all, we have several approaches. We can either use the MongoDB URI format to connect to the Mongo server, or we could use the regular format in which we simply specify, say for example, client would equal pymongo.mongo client, and then in here we specify the local host and the default port number, which is 27017. You could use the port that if you change the defaults, you can go ahead and specify those as you see appropriate. However, the format that I personally prefer is to use a specific variable for the URI and a different variable for the client, just in case we want to change the URI afterwards. So anyways, I'm going to do that. I'm going to specify a URI. In this case, the URI would be Mongo. I'm going to use the MongoDB URI format, MongoDB, and then / and then the localhost. You could either specify localhost or the 127.0.0.0.1, and also along with the port number 27017. Now that we have the URI, we shall define the client, and we shall create an instance by using pymongo. Again, similar to the way we have seen as I showed you earlier just a few seconds ago, and then we specify in the URI to create a client that connects to the server. Now that we have the URI and the client, now we have created the connection to the MongoDB server. What we need to do now is specify which database to use. Now let me show you something really quickly. Now that we connected to Mongo, if we showed in the databases, we have multiple databases, we have to decide which database to use. In this case, I have upload tutorial, so I'm going to use that. Upload_ tutorial like that. And now that we're connected to the database, if we clicked on, minimize this. If we clicked on show collections, we get to see all the tables that exist in the database here, in the upload tutorial database. And collections are basically, you can think of them as tables. In MongoDB, they're called collections. And in this video, I'm going to use this term collections instead of tables. And inside of tables, you have records. In MongoDB, they're basically called documents, and I'm going to use documents instead of records or rows in this video tutorial, so just to get you acquainted with the terms. Okay, so now that we have the client specified and we have the URI specified, now we shall specify which specific database to use. In this case, we are going to use the upload tutorial database, so we're going to use the clients that we have here, and then we're going to specify the database that we want to use. In this case, it's called upload_tutorial. There we are, and inside of that, now that we have the database, now we should define the table that we use. Now, for example, let's name it maybe images. Let's call our table images. You have seen earlier here that we do not have any table called images. Now, even if it does not exist, it will be automatically created. Now I'm going to use the db and dot images. Now we do not have the table called images, so it will be created for us, and we shall see it. So the object here shall contain images, and images will conform to a table name. Table name, which is basically a collection name. Now that we have everything set and ready, let's go ahead and give it a try. Now, how about let's insert a record first. So what we are going to do is do a quick insertion using a method called insert1 in PyMongo. Insert1, and so we're going to use the images table and we're going to insert a record in the images table, in the images collection. And something to note, the commands in PyMongo or Python or MongoDB for that matter, always you can always think of them as a method, and they always have parentheses here. So, and inside of them they hold on a document. A document is basically a JSON specification kind of specific kind of record, or and in documents you basically in the lamest terms you have curly brackets and key values, and the key colon value. If you have multiple of attributes in the documents, you just separate them by a comma, and then key, and then value again. And the value can be anything between text, number, a list, anything. And if you remove the quotes, it will be considered as a number, and it can be something like a list, and inside the list you'll have multiple of other key value attributes here, and so on and so forth. So it can be anything. Feel free to take a look at the JSON specifications and how JSONs are, just to get acquainted and familiar with the terms and how to use JSON in general. So there we are. So insert1 takes in a document. So we're telling PyMongo to actually store a record in single record in the images collection. And in here, let's define an ID. Now, do not worry if you did not specify an ID here, because it will be automatically generated for you by the database, by the Mongo server. But I'm specifying it here just to simplify things for us, because the default ID specified by the MongoDB or assigned by the server, the Mongo server, is a little complicated to work with. So I'm just going to use this one for now. So we're inserting an ID and we're setting a file name. Say for example, the file name would equal something like a string called koala.jpg, for example. And maybe let me add in another attribute. Let's call it size, and we're going to give it a number, say 25. So there we are. Let's give it a try. Let's run this, and let me open up a page. Okay, so 1, 2, there we are. So we have so it's on load. So as the moment we load the home, we should get this query here should be executed. So let's go back to the database and show collections again, and indeed we see that the images table has been created. And if we try to show the elements in images, db.images.find, just to give us the all the results that we have. So now we have the ID equals 1, file name equals koala, and size equals 25, and this is exactly what we have specified as we have set here. So I think we done a good job so far. And how about we read the database? It's very simple. Let's print, or let's use the images table again, and inside the image table we want to find one record, and we do not need to give it any parameters here, because find one will retrieve a single document from the database, and in this case we have only one single document in the database, so it will return whatever it finds. And let's print this one, and let's rerun this again, and let me just refresh, and we shall see, oh, we have an error here, simply because we have a duplicate error. Again, we have specified one, and you cannot specify one because this one will be executed every time we run this command. So how about or you know what, let's insert another document calling it ID2, and in here let's give it a title of desert. Let's restart this, and let me refresh this again, and we can see here sorry, we can see here that the document that has been returned by executing this line here, find one, it has actually returned the document that we have. It's only find one, so it only returned a single document which we have here. Great. So now I think we're good to go. I think we've done basically those are the basics on how to connect to the database, to MongoDB, and retrieve the elements from MongoDB. So let me close this. So our problem, we want to store the path to the file name or to the image name in the database, and after we do the uploading here, it comes to the app.y in the back end, and it executes this endpoint upload. And in here we know where to store the file in. We know that we are storing it in file, and then folder name, and then the specific file name here. We know that the file name represents the exact file name that we have here. Now we shall use that to store to the database. So the way we're going to use that, we're going to use images collection. Again, this is why we specified it as a global variable here, so that we just read it inside here without every time specifying the URI and the client. So there we are. So images, and then I'm going to insert _1, and the document that we want to insert is basically and I'm going to give it our own ID. That you could do your own generator here, or you could use the library UUID to generate unique IDs, or you could have maybe the username as an ID for assuming that's a single image for each user. Anyways, but for this video I'm just going to use our own IDs. So I'm going to use an ID of 3 because we already have specified an ID of 2 in the database. As you can see here, let me just show you real quick. We have an ID of 2, and there we are. So this is the ID, a colon to separate multiple of attributes, and then I'm going to specify the file name, and this is the important part. Now we know that the file name here is basically stored in files and the folder name. So I'm going to copy this and use it here. So this will contain files / the folder name, say for example Batman, and we want to add / the file name. So I'm going to plug in the file name here as well, because we know that the file name here contains the exact name of the image, and there we are. So as we insert those, so we do not need to add the length here, there is no need to do that, or the size, sorry. So now after we upload an image, this record has to be inserted. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. Let me run the application, and let me open up the page again, and there we are. Let me refresh. So let's store in Batman, and let's upload an image to Batman, say for example Lighthouse. So note that Lighthouse does not exist. We did not fix the page where we read the images from. It's still, as we have seen in the previous videos, reading from images. So the images should not show, but we will fix it afterwards. So anyways, let's go ahead and see if the record gets inserted. I'm going to upload, and voila. Let's consult the database and just verify if the ID3 is there. So there we have it, ID3, and the file name files Batman Lighthouse.jpg. Now we verify the database, the record is actually there and the image is actually there. Let's verify in Batman, and the lighthouse is actually there. So I think we're good so far. Now let me close this, disconnect, and now we shall see how to read the path, how to read the image that we have just stored. Now we know in complete.html this one executes the send image endpoint and passes in this parameter. And then the send image here is actually this one, and it's actually reading from images directory. Now we shall change it to read from, to actually read the image from the path that we have in the database. So we know that we have stored the database in this format. We have files, Batman, and /lighthouse.jpg. Now let's keep this one here just so we can consult it in the way we construct our strings and so on and so forth. So I'm going to use the images database to find a record. Again, finding is like a method, and then inside of it I'm going to give the parameters that we need to find. And if you're not familiar with the with the MongoDB commands, I'm going to post a video or a quick video on how to get familiar with MongoDB, basic find and insertions and so on and so forth. So stay tuned, and hopefully I'll upload it very soon. Anyways, so find, I'm going to find the element where the ID is 3. So I'm going to find this record where the ID is 3. So I'm going to specify the ID underscore ID and the value of 3. And then I'm going to store this document in image like that. So this will contain a dictionary of these values here. And then to access the file name, we can simply go print image.filename. It's a dictionary, so we specify the key here like in file name. You know what, let's add a string here. Before we run this, you have to change the ID here to 4, and also this will return a cursor. So I have to use find one to return a single document, and if we kept to use find, this will always return a cursor, and to display each and every file. This would be useful if you want to return multiple of images. For example, in this case, say for example return all the documents where the ID is equals 4. Of course this is impossible because in PyMongo the ID has to be unique. Anyways, but for just to explain things very quickly, so you would go for I in image, and then you would want to print maybe I and the supply in the key name, which basically the file name. And again, find will always return you a cursor, so we'll have to use find one to return a document. There we are. So let's go ahead and print image and file name. Or you know what, we can get rid of this because we're actually passing the file name here. We're actually obtaining it from the complete, which is actually passed from the upload endpoint. So instead, what we could do, we could get a tail, head, tail, and obtain it from image and file name. Now what this one will contain, we've seen that the file name is actually I shouldn't have closed that, but anyways, the way we're storing in the database is basically files, Batman, and /koala.jpg. So what OS path will do, os.path.split, and supply in the string that we want to split. There we are. So what this one will do, will split this string to two parts. The tail part will contain koala.jpg, and the head part will contain the path until koala.jpg. So instead of us now this path, we're passing the file name from complete.html here. We're passing the file name, and the file name, that is where we're getting the file name from, is from the upload endpoint. We're passing the image name, the exact name. Now so what we only need is to change the images, which is basically the folder. So now instead of us passing in the images, or reading from images, we just supply in head. And just for debugging purposes, we could print head, and we could also print tail. There we are. So that's it. Let's give this a run and see how it goes. Now we know that, okay, so let me refresh this and keep an eye out in here. So let's upload an image that does not exist in Batman. So how about desert? Desert does not exist in Batman. So we should also change something. This is change this to ID 5 and ID 5. Rerun this again and refresh this page again. So now we're uploading to Batman, and let's upload desert because it does not exist in Batman. And complete.html should display the image from the database. Now it's actually the image. You can see the output here. Now this is the this is the head. This is print head, and this is print tail, and the image from the database is called images file, is actually called the full path, and we've just passed head, which is basically files Batman, and it gets displayed in complete.html. Okay, so basically that's it. Just a quick recap. I understand I talked a lot about this, and I might have confused you. I do apologize. Anyways, I tried to simplify this as much as possible. I started assuming that you have basic knowledge in MongoDB, so I hope you start to get familiar with the terms, and I hope I helped them a little in this video. So a quick recap again. We created the URI to the Mongo server. We've created the client that connects to the database to the Mongo server, and we specified which database to connect to and which table to use. Now, if you want to use another table, you can define other variables of the table names that you need. Now, when we uploaded the file, we got the file name, and then we stored the path to the image, and we specified our own IDs and stored it in images directory, in the images folder. After that, when we wanted to read, we just read the database and obtained the file name, which is basically the full path here, and then we just read the head from the path and send it to send directory, and the file name is actually passed from complete.html. That's it. So I hope that is helpful. Thank you for following, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and have a good day. Goodbye.